everyone, Rhonda here, ready for another library challenge. So I decided to do something different this time. I'm really excited about this. It's gonna be super fun. I made a whole pile of prompts that I put in this cat treat container. And all these prompts are various things that I have to pick. So like, for example, I'll just show you one. So I go to the library and then I look at the prompt, and like this one here is choose a book published in the last 5 years. So that gives me some choice. I've got some in here that have a lot of choice. Like there's ones like that. There's ones like, you know, choose a book that has red on the cover, you know, that have a lot of choice. And then there's other ones. This one is, you know, choose a book in a genre you don't normally read, you know, things like that. And some of them are random number generated. So like for example, one of the ones is my usual one where I randomly generate a shelf and then pick a book off of that. Or there's some where it's like, you know, randomly generate a shelf and then choose the 7th book on the bottom shelf of that section. So, you know, things like that where I have no choice. So the only rules are that I have to pick a prompt and fulfill the prompt. And if I find a book that I have read, that I've already read, if the book that I'm, you know, that I randomly generate or whatever is one that I've already read, I can pick the book on either side of it. So that's what the plan is. So we are off to the library again, and come join me for some fun. Randomly generate a shelf and level and read the middle book on that shelf. Dang it. Okay, so back in. Just let me focus. There we go. All right. So shelf number 6. So let's find that first. So we've got. Now, what was I doing? I think I was doing. Oh yeah, I was doing each one of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is up here. So then we have to generate a level. So now I'm wondering. Do you have to random number generate a level? Yeah, so we'll have 4 levels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels. Okay. 2. Okay, so it's this row. Now, do I do the middle of one of these, or do I do the middle of the whole thing? What do you think I should do?
Let's random number generate which one of these.
Okay, so there's 4 of those. 3. So 1, 2, 3. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 books. Well, let's go 19 so I have a middle book.
Okay.
Or should I go 20? And then pick one of the 2.
Between the 2.
Okay, so we need, so that'd be number
10 on either side.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So either Churchill Secret Messenger or The Long Flight Home. Okay, let's see what they are. Pigeons in the World War. Okay. First, read a book that starts with a randomly generated letter. Okay. Okay, ready? Yes. E. Okay, so it has to start with E. A book with a title starting with E. Find a book by an author you previously gave 5 stars to. Okay. Well, I will. Everyone, I'm home from the library, so I thought I would tell you a little bit more about the books that I picked. So the first prompt, if you recall, was I had to automatically generate a stack, and then I had to generate a level on the stack, and then I had to pick one of the sections of that level automatically with the number generator, and then I had to pick the middle book from that section. And if you'll recall from looking at the video, I ended up with a section that had 20 books in it, so I could pick either the 10th or the 11th book. And so I ended up picking, they actually ended up both being by the same person, and I thought this one looked a little more interesting. So this is the book I picked, The Long Flight Home by Alan Ladd. And this is a book set in World War II. I don't read a lot of World War II novels. That's not my favorite historical period to read, but this one just looked really interesting and unique. So this one it takes place in September 1940, and it's about a young woman named Susan Shepherd. And Susan lives with her grandfather, and they have raised homing pigeons. And Susan has a real strong connection to a particular homing pigeon named Duchess that she raised from an egg. And she eventually takes part in a covert mission to use homing pigeons for some kind of spying over in Europe on the Germans. So she gets involved in that, and then at the same time there's a young man named Ollie Evans, who's a crop duster pilot in Buxton, Maine, and he decides to join the Royal Air Force. He comes over and joins the Air Force. He meets Susan, and they strike up a friendship. I believe it probably develops into a romance. And then Ollie's plane is shot down in Germany, and there is, it says, when Ollie's plane is down behind enemy lines, both know how remote the chances of reunion must be, yet Duchess, that's the pigeon, devotion and her singular sense of duty will become an unexpected lifeline, relaying messages between Susan and Ollie as war rages on, and proving at last that hope is never truly lost. So that sounds like a really heartwarming sort of story, and involves animals, which everybody knows I love books involving animals. I just really, really hope that the pigeon doesn't die, even though I'm not a big bird fan. Anyway, we'll see how that one goes. So that was the one that I picked from the random number generator. Okay, so then the second prompt that I had was I had to randomly generate a letter from the alphabet and read a book that started with that letter. And as you will have seen in our search, I came up with E. So I had to find a book that started with E, and I ended up picking Elsewhere by Dean Koontz. This one looks really interesting, and I had been wanting to read some more Dean Koontz. I've read a couple and enjoyed them, so I wanted to read some more of his, in particular his newer ones, because I find his older ones are a little bit less character development and that sort of thing. So I'm excited about this one. This one he wrote in 2020, I believe. Yeah, 2020 is when it's copyright. So this book follows a man named Jeffy Coltrane and his 11-year-old daughter Amity. And Jeffy's wife, Amity's mother, went missing 7 years before. Her name is Michelle. She went missing 7 years before. So he's just been trying to provide a good life for his daughter in a small town, when the town eccentric shows up at his door one day and gives him a device that he claims is the key to everything. He warns him never to use it. So Jeffy decides to hide the device, and then he has a visit from a group of ominous men who are looking for something, and he and Amity end up accidentally turning on this device, and they discover that they are now able to jump between parallel planes, and they start to wonder if perhaps something like this is what happened to Michelle and maybe they can find her. But it says that Jeffy and Amity aren't the only ones interested in the device. A man with a dark purpose is in pursuit, determined to use its grand potential for profound evil. Unless Amity and Jeffy can outwit him, the place they call home may never be safe again. So this one sounds really exciting. I'm looking forward to it because, like I say, one of my all-time favorite books that I just love was Dean Koontz's Life Expectancy. That one was one of my all-time favorite books when it first came out. That was probably there in the mid-early 2000s. I can't remember when it came out, but anyways, that one was one of my favorites. I really enjoyed it, so I'm looking forward to trying this one. And the final prompt that I pulled was, as you will remember from the previous section, was a book by an author that I'd previously given 5 stars to. And this one was actually a little more difficult than I thought, because I was trying to focus on books that I'd given 5 stars to in the last year and a half. And the problem was that our library didn't have a lot of those authors, or they had later books in series. I checked out Bernard Cornwell, and they had, books further on in the series. They didn't have the next one that I needed, or the first one of another series. I looked at Jane Harper. They had the third one in the Aaron Falk series, but I already own it, and they didn't have either of her other ones. I looked up Stephen Lawhead. I was hoping that they would maybe have the second book in the Hood series, or the King Raven series. It started with Hood, that I gave 5 stars to, but they have the first one and the third one. I have to order in the second one. And I looked for a few other ones anyways, and that I'd given 5 stars to. So I was struggling a little bit to figure out, okay, who am I going to find, that we actually have books of in our library, because I do live in a smaller city and it's a small library. And then I remembered, because my sister happened to be reading a Nick Hornby book, that I had really enjoyed Nick Hornby. So I looked back on my Goodreads, and the last one of his that I had read was one called A Long Way Down. I'd read it for a book club back, probably 10 years ago now. And I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 5 stars. So I was like, hey, it's been years since I read Nick Hornby, so why don't I see what they have at our library? And they had 3 of them. And so I picked this one here, which is Juliet Naked. And this book is about a woman named Annie and her boyfriend Duncan, and the two of them, they think they love each other, and then all of a sudden they think they don't. So she's struggling to sort of figure out her life, and she strikes up an internet correspondence with a washed up a reclusive Dylan-esque singer-songwriter who stopped making music 22 years ago, and his name is Tucker Crow. They start to forge a friendship through their online discussions, and Tucker Crow is about to release a acoustic version of his biggest album, which was called Juliet, and so the acoustic version that he's about to release is called Juliet Naked. He heads over to England to face his multitude of ex-wives and children, both just discovered and formerly neglected, in the same country where his intriguing new internet friend resides. And he also has a young son named Jackson that he's trying to it says it's his one hope for redemption is his young son Jackson. So there's that involved as well. So he goes across the Atlantic with his son, and ends up in England. It says, what happens when a washed up musician looks for another chance, and miles away a restless, childless woman looks for a change? Juliet Naked is a powerfully engrossing, humblingly humorous novel about music, love, loneliness, and the struggle to live up to one's promise. So this looks good. Like I say, I really enjoyed A Long Way Down, and I remember also really enjoying About a Boy by Nick Hornby. So I am excited to try that one as well. So those are the 3 books that I took out for my library challenge, and I will let you know how the reading goes.
It's sunset. I'm just outside with the new little ponies. Hello, little lady. This is Heidi. Heidi is blind. Come on, girls. Come on over. Say hello. Hi, Heidi. So precious. You coming over, little lady? Come on. This one is She Daisy. And then that's Flashy Girl and Dixie. Hi, girls. There's a beautiful sunset tonight, so I thought I'd just sit out here and watch the sunset and say hi to the girls. Do another one, miss? You were so shy earlier. You were so shy earlier. So, little update. I started this one. I've gotten about 50 pages in. So far, I'm not super into it. Again, it's only 50 pages in, but I'm not finding the guy's writing style really compelling for myself. So far, it feels like he's doing a lot more telling than showing, which I'm not used to. Where I'm at right now, the 2 different people haven't met, but there's, what's her name? Susan, I think. Yeah, Susan in England, and she and her grandfather are hiding in their bomb shelter because the bombing of London has begun, and they're the ones that raise the pigeons. And then there's Ollie in the States, and this is where it should have been a really, really emotional chapter. It's like in the second chapter, his parents get killed in the second chapter, and it should have been like extremely emotional because that's what drives him to then move forward to, trying to figure out what he's going to do with his life and everything. But I just didn't feel anything for the characters yet. So we'll see. I'm curious because it is an interesting premise. So I'm curious as to whether I will grow to like the writing. So, but I'm going to read for a few minutes. Pumpkin's here to help me. Hey, Pumpkin. And I got my ponies, and I'm going to just read for a little bit until it gets dark out. So I've made quite a bit of progress on, hi Dixie, I've made quite a bit of progress on the Long Flight Home by Alan Ladd. I'm starting to like it a little bit more. It's not, I still don't like the writing style a lot, but the story itself is becoming more interesting because now Oliver has reached England, and this is all kind of in the first, 50 pages or so. Well, I think I'm a little further than that. I'm maybe 75 pages. Hi, Dixie. And he arrived at England in London. He made his way to London, and then he ended up on the same train as Susan because she had gone to London for a meeting with the pigeon service and the military people. Hi. And in place of her grandfather, whose knees were sore. And so she ended up on the same train, and he rescued her from a situation, and but ended up getting himself into a worse situation. And then her grandfather ended up making a deal with the military to that he would come and work on their farm for 90 days, and then he wouldn't have worse things happen. So that's where I'm at now. He's just arrived and everything there. So it's starting to get a little bit more interesting because now the characters are together and there's a little bit more happening. I still don't really care for the writing style though, because there's so many things that aren't described. Like, he does so much more telling versus showing. There's like one part where he had just arrived in England, and he's talking to a guy on the docks whose wife and child were killed in the bombing raids,
And he just tells us that the guy tells him that his wife and child were killed, instead of like actually having the guy tell us that and putting like some emotion into it. So like I really felt no emotion about it whatsoever. So that's the thing that I'm kind of maybe not liking so much about it. But otherwise the story is getting a little more interesting. So keep going with that one and see what I think by the end. The concept is very interesting, but the execution I'm maybe not enjoying so much. It's maybe not the style that I like. So anyways, I'm going to just hang out here some more with my little ponies. And then I'll go in and I'll try and do some reading tonight. So I will let you guys know how far I can get. Hopefully it's not too windy to hear me, but it's, I'm in town today. I had to get my glasses lenses replaced, so I did that. And now I have a little waiting to do because I'm waiting for my sister to get out of a meeting. So I thought I would walk down to the library and sit and read for a bit. I'm hoping to get a good chunk read on the Long Way Home book. It's going okay. I'm finding it really slow because I don't really, like, there's stuff that's happening, but I don't really care about it. It's kind of, I think it's the writing. I don't care for the writing very much. And I think it bounces around from between points of view within a scene. So I don't feel like I'm right in somebody's head. And then, just like I said before, there's a lot of telling instead of showing, especially in the emotional parts. So I'm not really feeling much for the characters yet. So anyway, I'll catch up with you guys when we get to the library. Just in the process of making my lunch here, having some spaghetti noodles. Anyway, so I thought I would fill you in on how things went with the rest of my day yesterday. I actually did get quite a bit of reading done. I was able to get about 65% into the book, The Long Way Home, and it's definitely picking up. I'm finding it a lot more interesting now. Just draining my noodles here. Finding it a lot more interesting now. I still don't like his writing style very much, but I'm finding it a lot more interesting. Like I'm actually, concerned about the characters and stuff now. I still don't think it'll be more than about a 3-star from me, depending on how the rest of it goes. There's also some areas where I kind of have to suspend my disbelief a little more than it's kind of a cool idea. And I know quite a bit of the stuff was, like with the pigeons and things like that, was actually real. But there's parts of it that I'm kind of like, I don't know if that would actually happen. But anyways, it was interesting. I looked up, there were many thousands of pigeons used in both the world wars to take messages or to do messages behind enemy lines. And what they would do is they would put them into cages, and the bombers would drop them with parachutes over occupied France, and then the French resistance would find them if they found them first, and would write notes and put them back onto their legs and then send them home. And that's how. And then at the home farms, they would have alarms in all the coops, and as soldiers there. And whenever an alarm went off, they would run and get the message and send it in. So that was really interesting. There was actually some pigeons who have received like medals of honor and that sort of thing. But it also was pretty much, for a lot of them, it was like a death sentence. We talk quite often about how animals are sacrificed in war. And I know there's a lot of, mules and things like that have been sacrificed in war. On the front lines, and apparently pigeons were too, because once the Germans figured out what the Allies were doing, then they started trying to shoot down the cages of pigeons, and they would try and have snipers to shoot down flying pigeons and everything. And so a lot of them didn't make it back, but a lot of them did, and helped with the intelligence to turn the tide of the war. So that part I'm finding really interesting. But yeah, like I say, the writing style is just not really my thing. He's just, well, it's like I said before, it's too much telling and not enough showing. So I don't feel the emotion that I should be feeling for the story. So, but anyways, I'm at 65% now, so I should be able to finish that hopefully this weekend and move on to my next book from the library, which I think I'm probably going to read the Dean Koontz one next. So I have something a little bit more thrillery, and then I'll read the Nick Hornby, because I know those ones aren't, high action. So that's kind of my update for today. So I'm going to go and finish my lunch, and then I got to go into town and help my sister with her books again, and I got to do my chores, do the feeding out here on the farm, and then hopefully have a good relaxing weekend. So I'll let you know how it goes. So I finally finished The Long Flight Home by Alan Ladd. And unfortunately, this one gets a 2-star from me. I knew it was going to be lower. Because... What do you think, Raven? I knew it was going to be lower because I didn't like his writing style. I found the characters were quite one-dimensional, especially for the first half of the book. And the writing was somewhat predictable. And I thought there was too much telling and not enough showing of the things that were going on and the emotions and everything. It took me, I would say probably at least half the book to start to actually really care about the characters. But then what took it down from a 3 to a 2 was the ending, because this is totally spoiler free, but I finally got to where I was caring about the characters, and I was actually kind of enjoying the book, and it was this build up, and everything was happening, and I was getting into it, and then all of a sudden it just, I hated the ending. I understand part of why he ended it the way he did, and how that could make a decent story, but it kind of pissed me off. And especially because there was all this build up, and then it felt like a letdown at the end, like things just stopped, and I did not enjoy that. So anyway, so that was a 2-star. So I'm going to move on to my next book, which I think is going to be the Dean Koontz one, and I will let you know after I read a bit of that. Time. I'm sitting in town, just waiting for somebody to go by. I'm sitting in town and waiting for an appointment, so I thought I'd do some reading and I'd update you guys because I have actually gotten quite far in this one. This is Elsewhere by Dean Koontz, which I was reading for the library challenge. And I am on chapter 40, which is page 166. I read a lot yesterday. And I'm actually really enjoying this one. It's a good story. There's a few parts that are a little, unbelievable, but other than that, it's a very good thriller. So essentially what you've got happening is it's this man named Jeffy Coltrane and his daughter Amity. And his wife Michelle had left them 7 years earlier. And then the one day he's sitting on the porch and this old homeless guy comes up, but he's kind of he's a guy that has been around a lot and talked to him and all of that, and he's not like a druggie or anything. He's just this homeless guy. And so he comes and sits on the patio, and then he tells him that he's being hunted and that these people are after him. And he gives Jeffy a box and he tells him that this is the key to everything, and whatever you do, don't use it. Like, leave it in the box. And then he says if he doesn't come back to get it in a day or two, then in a year for sure, he said, then fill a barrel half full of cement, put it in there, fill the other half with cement, take it out into the ocean and dump it. So he is thinking, that this guy's just crazy. And then the next morning when they get up, there's these black SUVs, there's helicopters, there's all kinds of armored vehicles and everything that are going down to the canyon where all the homeless people live, and they're hunting for this guy. And so he hides the item, and then these guys show up at his door, and one of them is this Falkirk is his name, and he says he's an NSA agent, but you very quickly find out that he's working for the shadow government and really has no rules. And he's looking for this guy that he says his name is Ed. They knew his name was Ed, but Edwin Harkenbach. And they're trying to find this device that he had. And then what ends up happening is, after these guys leave, and they basically, they make it look like, like Jeffy and his daughter, she's 11, but she's quite precocious for an 11-year-old. They play dumb kind of thing. They don't really know this guy and all that. But this Kirkbach? What the heck is his name? Falkirk. Falkirk. He doesn't really believe them, so they're suspicious to him. And so then he ends up, after they leave, they pull out this device and look at it, and here it looks kind of like a phone. And then, but little Amity has this pet mouse, and her pet mouse goes and sits on it and activates it, and all of a sudden it's like they pass through this white area, and then all of a sudden they're back in their house, but things are different. And so fairly quickly on, which it does talk about in the synopsis, so it's not a spoiler, you learn that the device can take them to an infinite number of parallel universes. So you've got them dealing with that, trying to figure out what to do, how to hide this from this Falkirk guy. And at the same time, they both are thinking that perhaps somewhere out there they can find another version of her mother that would want to come and live with them. And so that's kind of in the back of their minds as well, even though they know that that's not a smart thing to do. It's in the back of their minds, and they're thinking about it. So anyway, so that's kind of where I'm at, and there's a lot more that happens as well. But it's quite good so far. I'm liking the writing. The only things that I would say kind of make it a little more unbelievable for me is his daughter is a little, they do describe her as being quite precocious for an 11-year-old, but she does seem a little bit older. And then the Falkirk guy, he's very, very, well, he's a real asshole, and which isn't unbelievable, but just when the scenes are from his point of view, like some of the things that he thinks about and says, like he wants to like hurt people and all that, and he's talking about wanting to like smack the little 11-year-old girl because he thinks that she reminds him too much of his stepsister growing up and things like that. So he's like a little over the top, maybe. It's hard to say. We'll see where it goes. So anyways, I'm going to keep reading that today, and we'll see how far I get. Figure I'll be done this one pretty quickly because I only have probably about, would be 100, maybe 200 pages left. So I'm gonna give that a read, and I will let you guys know when I finish it. So I managed to finish this one last night, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. This is Elsewhere by Dean Koontz, and I really enjoyed this one. The story in some places. Hi, Oscar. Hi. The story in some places I found a little bit unbelievable, and I found that I found that the villain was a little over the top for me, and that's kind of where it lost a few points. The villain, he was just so over the top, and he kept talking about, oh, this person who wronged him and that person who wronged him and how much he hated them and wanted to kill them, and like he was just very over the top. But it did work to make a really good story. And overall, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the way the direction it went. I enjoyed where it ended. I enjoyed the suspense. So overall, I found it to be a very fun book to read. And Dean Koontz tends to be a little bit hit and miss with me, just depending on the story. I find his newer stuff to be less so. And this one was written in 2020, I believe. And so it's one of his newer ones, and I find those ones tend to be ones that I like better. So that was a really fun book to read. And next for this vlog, I'm going to pick up the Nick Hornby book. So I will let you guys know when I make some progress on that one. So the third book for my library vlog is Juliet Naked by Nick Hornby. And I started this one the other day, and I've gotten now to page 58. So I've made a little bit of a start on it. And to me, it's, again, classic Nick Hornby. I've really enjoyed his books in the past. I had given A Long Way Down a 5-star, which is why I picked this one for my book that I've given author that I've given 5 stars to before. So this one follows a woman named, what the heck is her name? Alice? No, Annie. A woman named Annie. And she is in a relationship with this guy named Duncan. And Duncan is a very, very avid fan of this artist named Tucker Crowe. Crowe stopped making music in I think it was 1986, and hasn't made anything since then. But there's this online group of fans who's is obsessed with him and everything about his life. And so the story starts with Duncan and Annie on a trip to the United States where they're touring these places that were important in Tucker Crowe's life. And Annie is a lot less involved in what's going on than Duncan is. But they're going around to these different places, and then something happens and Duncan decides that he's not going to be into Tucker Crowe anymore. But then when they get back, a letter arrives in the mail that Annie opens, and here it's a letter from Tucker Crowe's, I think he's like some PR guy or whatever, because Duncan runs this website that's devoted to Tucker Crowe. And so he sends him a CD of his last album that he made before he quit was called Juliet, and it was kind of his breakup album with his girlfriend. And he's going to release a special edition called Juliet Naked, which is acoustic versions of it. And so Annie finds this in the mail, and she listens to it before him, which is the big no-no. So you discover through the things that are going on that their relationship is very strained. They're not really in love with each other anymore, and she wants more, and he doesn't understand her and doesn't understand how she can't be as into the whole Tucker Crowe thing as him and everything. So that's where it started for the first about 50 pages. And we're going to be getting into, I think, more and more relationship stuff. And then I do know from the cover that she ends up breaking up with Duncan, and then she starts an email correspondence with Tucker Crowe, and then that leads to a whole bunch of interesting things because he ends up coming to England to sort out some issues with his family and all that sort of thing, and he ends up calling on her, and I'm not sure where all of it goes from there. But it's really good, and it's a classic Nick Hornby. Like, I love the way it starts. Because he's just got such humor in his writing. And I love the way it starts. It says, they had flown from England to Minneapolis to look at a toilet. The simple truth of this only struck Annie when they were actually inside it, apart from the graffiti on the walls, some of which made some kind of reference to the toilet's importance in musical history. It was dank, dark, smelly, and entirely unremarkable. Americans were very good at making the most of their heritage, but there wasn't much even they could do here. I just love that opening. Yeah, he's got a really good sense of humor in his writing, and I just find it very, very readable. So I'm looking forward to continuing that one, and it's a little over 400 pages, and I'm only 50 pages in, so I've got a lot of reading to do, and I will let you know when I get a little further. Update time. So I have been reading Juliet Naked by Nick Hornby. This was the last one for my library vlog, and I am now on chapter 9, which is page 174. So I've made some pretty good progress in it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm finding that it's a very easy read for me, like most Nick Hornby books. I just really enjoy his writing, and I wish that he had written more than he did, but I do have more of his to get yet. And so yeah, I had told you guys a little bit about it. Like I say, I'm now on page 9, and things are starting to get a little more interesting because Annie and her boyfriend Duncan have now had a falling out, and also the primary important plot twist in the story is that Annie is now communicating via email with Tucker Crowe, who is the musician that Duncan was obsessed with. So that's getting interesting. You're starting to get scenes from Tucker's point of view, and you're starting to kind of understand him a little more, which is very interesting. He's a very well-written, unique character. And you're also starting to see other sides of Annie and some other sides of Duncan. And I'm really curious to see where it's going to go and how crazy things are going to get, because usually things start to get a little bit crazier as you go on in a Nick Hornby book. So I am really looking forward to continuing with that. And like I said, again, it's a very easy read because I just love his writing style. It's very readable, very smooth, very humorous. I enjoy a lot of the humor. There's been little parts that I've kind of laughed out loud at, and it just, I don't know, I just find his writing is just so readable. And that's kind of the main way I would put the main label that I would put on his writing. It's just extremely, extremely readable. So enjoying that, and I will continue that. I'm hoping to actually finish that in the next couple of days. I have 200 pages left, but like I said, it's going quite fast for me. So I will let you guys know when I finish that one and what I think of it. Time for my final update. So I finished Juliet Naked by Nick Hornby, and I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. I really, really like Nick Hornby's writing. He just seems to put the right amount of humor in it. He makes it extremely readable. I like his characters. It's kind of funny because the plot lines aren't really my normal sort of thing. I don't tend to read a lot of just contemporary sort of fiction, but I really still enjoy his plot lines because I enjoy his writing so much. So I ended up giving it 4.5. The only thing that kind of took it down for me was that the ending was quite ambiguous. I mean, it is fitting for the story, and it's easy to infer what most likely happened next from the ending, but it is somewhat ambiguous, and I tend to be a little bit, I don't like ambiguous endings as much as firm endings. So, but I really, really enjoyed that one. So that means that this one got 4.5. This one got 2 stars. And Elsewhere by Dean Koontz got 4 stars. So it's a pretty successful library vlog, I would say. I really, like I say, really enjoyed the Dean Koontz one, really enjoyed the Nick Hornby one. And this one, as you guys will have guessed from all the things that I've said, I did not very much enjoy, which is interesting because these two were ones that I picked because of the topic or whatever, you know. This Elsewhere we just had to start with an E, I believe, and the Nick Hornby one, it was for a pick of something that I'd give an author that I'd given 5 stars to before, whereas this one was I had to pick the randomly pick a shelf, randomly pick spot on the shelf, and then take the middle book, and that's how I ended up with this one. And like I said before, the story itself was sort of interesting, but I didn't like the guy's writing, and I absolutely hated the ending. It just made me so mad. So that is the books for my library vlog, and I will see you guys on my next one. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. And if you've ever tried something fun like that before, where you have different prompts and have to pick books at your library. So I will see you guys on my next video. Bye.